have a generic card number replaced, written over the top of it.
That generic isn't great for the audit purpose that we've got the token.
No, well, tokens will be different.
Yeah, but I mean, the starting point is that you're allowed to keep the first 6 last 4, so you can go through and check what card was used.
Yeah, okay.
Replacing everything that
there
you
is,
value.
there is that complexity in the current processes. Yeah.
And
that's why we allow for the control over the purge process. So different organisations have implemented the purge process in different ways. Some have allowed the retention for a week, for example, so they can do certain checks and so forth, or provide customer service, and other, but usually we implement it on a next day purge. The requirement for auditability and for customer service and retaining the card number for those reasons is usually less important than getting rid of the card numbers for a security point of view. But it's a business call at the end of the day. And that's why we allow each of you to make that decision separately. The new system, those CVC codes, the card numbers and expiry dates are passed to the payment gateway. We retrieve the token, and only the token is stored with the first 6 and last 4 digits, that an expiry date for the auditing and for matching of future tokens. So you will never have a CVC code stored in your database once you tokenize, and you'll never have a full card number stored in your database once you tokenize. And that's where we're trying to get to. Now, the other advantage of using tokens is you get to reuse them. And if the supporter indicates that, yes, I'm happy for you to save my card details on file, and of course you'll need to write your little beagle saying what you're saving and how you retain it and so forth. That will need to change. So you need to think about that. But if they give that authority and they come and repeat a purchase, they can just select the card that they already have on file, and you can use that for a new transaction.
Like that, then translate, like we've got multiple relationships with a donor, so they might buy a lot of tickets and get ready to go different websites. It's going to come up on each website automatically.
Yes.
Even if they've never been to that website.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But they've got a relationship up.
Yes. Exactly. We'll show you how that works.
That's based on merchant, wouldn't it?
The merchant account. Yeah, so okay, so we retain the tokens in a new table, full contact tokens, and I'll show you in a few minutes. I'll see how that is retained.
So we can access the token numbers out of the banking page as well? Or is that the only place we can access them?
Out of the banking page?
Like that, out of that page, if you just in the contact?
You're talking about the banking report, or?
If you're on the phone to me and not sure about buying the ticket, but you're checking what credit card details you use with us, or?
Oh, well, yes, you would have that once you support the. Oh, you're talking about in the contact edit
in the
page?
contact.
Yes.
Not ordering a ticket or anything.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, we'll jump ahead. We'll show you that screen since we've got 3 questions about the same screen. Okay, so there's a new tab on the contact edit window. At the moment, it's right down the end. We'll determine as to whether we need to move that up or not later on. But this is what the tokens tab looks like. So each contact will have their token history stored here. So you can see the digits of the card, etc., when it was created and captured. So what we're retaining here is information like when it was created, the order that where reuse authorization was provided, because they might use the card a couple of times before they give you authority to retain the token. We're also now capturing IP addresses for all transactions. The source of the transaction, I think that's the order, that'll be the order code originally, eventually, and the current status of the token. So the status of the token will be updated every time we use the token. So the status will generally be it's okay, or we had a soft bounce, or we had a hard bounce. So a soft bounce is where we got something like an insufficient funds rejection from the bank, but it means the card's okay, but the account is not right. And a hard bounce is when we get something like card lost or stolen or expired or something like that, okay? Where we would need to update the card details in order to reuse it. So we're retaining that information because we're then going to give you a few options in the websites and so forth where you allow reuse. Because we've got, we've spoken to 2 clients about this, and obviously we've got 2 different responses to how they want to do this. One client has said, on the website, if they log in and want to reuse a token, if they're allowed, if the token has a status of okay or a soft bounce, but not a hard bounce. So the other client has come back to us and said, no, even if it's a hard bounce, I want that token reused available. So you'll have the option of finding how that works. You'll also be able to see for any individual token, this hasn't been coded yet, but you'll be able to see any recurring transactions, that's pledges and standing orders associated with this token, and also any transactions ever that have used this token. Okay, so you'll have a full history there. Does that answer the various token questions?
I was still curious, if it's based on merchants, so somebody buys a lottery ticket and then they go and do something with it.
Yep.
Any different merchants, so would that token recognise the reuse, or is it only with the same merchant number?
Okay, each of the gateways will work slightly different, and you guys work different. So, for example, we've got clients who have a bank account for odd number lottery draws, bank account for even number lottery draws, and another bank account for general fund loading. We've got other people who have just one bank account for everything. So we have to support variations. Now a lot of it comes down to the payment gateway vendor. So as we are going to be supporting PayStream initially, but we're leaving room open to extend support. Endeavour wants to add eWay, and PCHF wants, which one? Easy Debit. So this is part of our challenge. 3 clients want 3 different gateways, but each is going to have different rules. So PayStream, we know, has sub-bank accounts. So what I would envisage, if you do want, say, a lotteries bank account and a fundraising bank account, you could use sub-accounts in the PayStream system, and you should get token reuse across the sub-accounts. Okay, but if you had a completely different merchant account, that might prevent that from happening. So these are the sorts of business scenarios we need to work through each of you. If this is not a simple thing to just roll out and we upgrade the software and you're off and running.
So we have an issue with duplicates. So if we have a record in the system based on say a lottery purchase, and then they go onto our Donate Now page and they don't log in, so the system doesn't recognise them as having a history with us, and they go in, they enter all new details, and they enter their credit card, yet they put in French rather than Michael French, so Mailman creates a separate record for them. In then passing that transaction through to our payment gateway, clearly it's the same merchant, and it's actually the same credit card that we already have stored on file, but we have 2 records in the system.
That's correct.
And
that will stay. That will continue to happen.
So
so too, if you have a husband, and wife, for example, both use the same card, but they've got different accounts, you will get 2 separate tokens.
So it won't look at that table that you were talking about.
No. We have to do it separately. We have to do it unique for each contact record.
So what about when we then merge? We find out our duplicates and merge.
Yeah, when you merge, you will then end up with 2 tokens transferred to the one account.
Yes.
And they would, if the token reuse, they would get both options.
Right.
Okay. Now, we might be able to tweak something that we can determine based on the card numbers, just pick one of them.
But actually, I think it'll be the same card number.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is we may be able to do some sort of merging there.
Okay.
Or indeed in the merge process, it's possible we might be able to do that, but we've got to think about what that does to auditability as well. If we convert all token entries from token B to token A and change the references to token B to token A, do we lose something from an auditability point of view? So,
because the first record has the token which is unique to that record, and that credit card, someone's come along and created a duplicate record which has the same credit card. So the system's not saying, hang on, this is a duplicate, a token already exists, and creating an error, or?
No, if it's the same contact reusing a card, we'll be able to detect that. But if it's a different contact records,
would that be dependent on what information is then? So is, say, in this case, you'll have two different customer records that could have the same token on each because they've created two accounts by accident or whatever.
They won't have the same token. My understanding from, and this is again for how each payment gateway works in this regard, may differ. But my understanding is if you tokenize a card once, you'll get one token. If you take the same card and tokenize it the second time, you'll get a different token. So that's why we retain the first 6 and last 4 digits of the card and the expiry date, so we can do our merge duplicate detection on the tokens based on that information.
But if, and going on from that point, if that person was a standing order on both of those accounts, or customer records in that case, what additional information, in the case of pastry, what information is passed through to pastry to say charge this tokens? If it's coming up with two different.
Each standing order would be related to one token. Okay, but we'll get into some of the interesting stuff with that in a few minutes. Okay, let's continue on. Some of the questions you're coming up with are going to be answered on the way through, so let's press on. So there are going to be a number of business processes we're going to have to think about it. It will vary depending on the bank account structure and based on your which of the payment gateways you implement. Okay.
So how long will that take in the timeline? If most charities they're not going to use pastry. So if we're saying 2017, March 2017, it's available. What sort of process will it take then the organisation to get that over the line?
Theoretically, I mean, if we had the go-ahead in like at Christmas or something, we may be able to introduce e-way at the same time, okay, in that release, or it might be the quarter after or something like that. Depends on what we work out with you guys in terms of project to go ahead with. But in advance to that, you have to start thinking about some of these business processes because that will that'll influence what needs to be done. And we need to do an audit of all your web infrastructure because all of that will have to change to support tokens. Okay? So there's code in Endeavour that hasn't been touched in 5 years probably. So we may take the option of saying, you know what, that code's been rewritten twice. We've got 2 generations further since that. It might be better rather than to modify that code, but or bring it up to speed. We might be better off replacing it, which means we've got to look at your portal, your point of sale, all that sort of stuff. So each scenario is going to be different. I mean, it's just going to have to be sit down and go through it. But the outcome is important. It's a necessary evil, both from primarily from a security point of view. Particularly the larger organisations amongst you, you're going to be forced this way anyway. The banks and the merchants are getting more and more particular. They're lowering the thresholds of what they require in terms of the highest level of security, and they're introducing more and more restrictions on each of the merchants. So what you don't want is the bank to come in one day and say, you've got 3 months to move, or we're removing your merchant account. You need to be well on the way for that. Yeah, each time we get a new client and applying for a new merchant account, we get different questions, more stringent scrutiny over the implementation and stuff like that. It is changing. If you're under the radar at the moment, it's only a matter of time. Okay. We do the web page. No, we can do the web page. Okay, so let's look at the web page. Okay, so reusing tokens in a web environment requires that you have strong authentication of the supporter. And we already have an ability to do authentication of supporter through Mailman logins. And most of you have those capabilities on your websites where a supporter can set up a login and come back and see their donation history or update their event details, that sort of stuff. So that is one method of authentication. But increasingly, people have problems remembering passwords and stuff like that. And so there are lots of third-party authentication methodologies available. The most popular of those is Facebook Connect. So we have developed support for Facebook Connect. It's possible for us to support other methods. There's a Twitter Connect, there's a Google Connect, there's all different authentication methods available, but we're focusing on Facebook Connect at the moment. So let's go down and do that list. Oh, we're already logged in? Okay. So what would happen is the supporter would click the login, Facebook login button, and if they're already logged into Facebook and stuff, it should just go through. Otherwise, it will prompt them for their password and allow them to connect. That will in turn bring up their details on the screen. So it will save them having to rekey those details. And most importantly for this scenario is it provides the option of paying with an existing card. If they want to use a different card, they tick the other box and enter the payment details. Okay. By the way, we've got name on card here, but that would normally not be required. And of course, we offer this option for save card for next time. In an environment, let's say you are running, some of you have event dashboards where you've got an option to kickstart your fundraising, donate to the event itself, okay? That sort of scenario where they're already logged in, that can be as simple as type in the amount. The option for using your existing cards already selected, so they press donate now. The amount, donate now. 2 steps. So that's the ultimate in terms of the efficiency that this process brings. Okay. As was pointed out in the previous session, one of the key things with regards to what we're doing is retaining these first 6 and last 4 digits. So you will have a way of linking the tokens to the actual card, the customer service requests and so forth. Whereas at the moment, the Mailman platform stores the whole card number but in an encrypted form and obfuscates the middle digits. In the tokenized structure, those middle digits are never stored. So it's impossible to have a card stolen.
If they don't log in by Facebook,
yep.
They're logging with their customer account,
yep.
and that's what we're paying.
Yep.
But if they don't have a if they have previous purchase with yes check out, they don't have
yes.
Will it still remember and be able to put that transaction through?
Yeah, that's where we have to go through the authentication process. If we're experimenting with different processes at the moment. So one is, if we've got a token and they've said, say, for reuse, you need to create a, even if it's a guest check, you need to create a login for them.
But they may not use it still.
They may not use it, but then, and that's fine. They can never use their token to use if they don't want. They can just type the card number in each time. That's not a problem.
But that won't just create another token at the end.
It will create a new token each time, I think. Depends on how. I'll have to, yeah, there's a couple of different scenarios. Creating a new token is not a problem. If somebody has 100 tokens against it, that's not an issue. No different to having had 100 cards used on the transaction.
Well, the difference though is when we're looking up there, definitely our
yeah.
come up.
Yeah.
Doesn't.
But you'll be able to see on the individual transaction which token is used, and you should be able to identify the token.
Can we remove tokens ourselves?
No, but they can have statuses and they will expire. Don't forget, tokens will expire as the cards change. Every 2 to 3 years, the token will expire anyway. So you're going to have a historical process there.
Is that part of the implementation? Or is that something you have to build when we?
No, it's part of what we do. So just explaining that when people are provided with a new card, if the card expires, we need to, we'll show you how the update card details happen. But a new token is generated, and we update standing orders and stuff that are in the system with those new token details. Now, as I said, I think I covered this earlier, but if you haven't moved to tokenization, you'll get the same screens and processes that you currently have. There will be no change. Okay. So let's have a look at credit clearance processing. Okay, grab some processing my card yet. Okay, as you all know, you're all familiar with the credit clearance export process. So that. Most of this is pretty much the same, except for the options that are available here. So if you can see down the bottom here, there are 3 new pay stream options. So the first one is pay stream and the pay stream API. So this is using pay stream but not tokenized. So this is actually in place in the system already. It's actually in the Q3 release, I believe. MSWA have been using it for 4 months or so. So this is just using PayStream as a normal credit clearance gateway, like most of you using eWay or Secure Pay or something like that. No changes, no tokenization. The other 2 options are PayStream batch credit cards and PayStream batch direct debit. And these are new credit clearance options for bulk processing of both credit cards and direct debits. So one of the reasons we developed this was for MATA Foundation, where we're doing all of their prize home lotteries, all of their lotteries, all of their fundraising, everything. That's our big project at the moment. One of the challenges that they hit us with was how do we process not just thousands, but hundreds of thousands of credit cards in one night? Okay. Now you do the math, those sorts of numbers, if we do 1 a second, and you've all been at, you know how long a card takes to go through a payment gateway, you've all flashed one at a supermarket or something like that, might take 3, 4, 5 seconds. Even if you do 1 a second, a couple of 100,000 cards is going to take several days to transfer. Okay, so that wasn't an option. So PayStream actually offers a bulk batch upload process, which we've taken advantage of. And what happens is we can also pre-produce these batches. So if we need to process 200,000 cards on the Wednesday night, we can generate the transactions on Monday and upload them to PayStream, dated as the Wednesday. On the Wednesday night, PayStream system will kick in, bulk clear the cards, and it's on their internal system. So the way their infrastructure is designed is they have a sort of like a highway through to the credit card clearance processes, and these cards go straight through that highway. They get the responses back in bulk, and then we've got an adjustment to the automatic/import credit clearance, so it reads that data back. So this is a new, very high-speed, high-capacity gateway that we've implemented. It will only work on PayStream though. Probably Endeavour would be the.
Is that an overnight process though?
We're talking. We're expecting we could probably do a couple of 100,000 cards in a matter of hours.
Yes, we are aware of a competitor running something that does 40,000 in about 2 hours.
Yeah.
So is this
Even past?
This is
we've yet
at
to,
that level?
Yeah.
So can you run it during the day, 24 hours, or does it have to still be at night?
No, you can run it during the day, and you can run it during the day, and it will happen immediately. Okay, or as I said, you can take advantage of this. So you guys know you can do backdated batches. Okay, so on the 30th of June, you suddenly get a bag of mail, you got 4 people off sick, you can't process it all, but everyone's going to want their receipts for the 30th of June, right? So the 1st of July, you backdate your batches and you process all that mail as 30th of June. So what we're allowing here is forward dating of batches, including in the standing order generation. So standing order production can take quite a bit of time because it's got a lot of stuff it's got to do. So what you'll be able to do is run that a couple of days in advance and actually submit those details to the payment gateway. You then run another smaller standing order generation on the day to catch anything that's been entered in ZIPs. But that would happen very quickly. You've got the bulk of it out.
People changing credit card in between, if they were part of that first file, and then inform some they did get something happen.
Wouldn't be able to handle that. That's right. That is an issue. But in terms of the ultimate capacity, this means the platform's able to manage extremely large numbers of transactions in a short period of time. We're also, with PayStream, we have the ability to support direct debits via a direct connection. Now, some of you are doing direct debits through a process of generating a file which gets uploaded somewhere, and then you download the file, and usually you have to manually handle the declines. Okay. PayStream offers direct debit support as well. Now they're a bit tricky about it because what they're doing in the background is the file process that you're doing, but they take it away from you. So when we use the API to upload information to PayStream, PayStream looks after all of that file transfer stuff and so forth for you. And then when they get the results, we get an absolute file, or we get results information back electronically again, and can electronically clear or decline the transactions. At the moment, what generally happens with direct debits is we assume that direct debits have cleared because direct debits take, they're a bit like checks in that you don't get a definite they've cleared. You only get it's been declined. Credit cards are different. Credit card transaction, you get information back. Yes, it's been cleared, or no, it's been declined. A check or a direct debit, you don't. You only get notice if it's been declined. So what they do is they wait 2 days, and they believe that, or they tell us that 99.9% of declines will happen within that 2 days. So they then send the results back that has all the declines, and they release everything else. They say that's good. If they say that if there are exceptional circumstances where a bank can post-decline a direct debit after that 2 days, but that's generally done through direct communications to you. Same thing can happen with credit cards, by the way. Even though you've got a cleared credit card, the bank can phone you up and say, sorry, we've decided to decline it after all because it was a stolen card or something like that. So you still got that. But this option is available here. We will be needing to add additional support for, obviously we'll have the e-way, we'll extend the e-way support for Endeavour for the tokenization. By the way, all three of these will support tokenization in the end product. And then we'll look at e-way, and then we'll have to write, which one is it? Easy debit.
We're not across the line any way, shape.
Yeah. Okay, so we're talking to you guys separately about that, all that sort of stuff. Now, another big change. First of all, any more questions about that process? Yes, ma'am.
You were showing with the order entry form and saying that there's the safety details for later.
Yes.
Is it creating a token at that point when you get that screen, or?
Yes. Yeah, so let's go into add donation again. Yes. So pick any supporter, yep. Yada yada. Now put in an amount, don't use a token, put in a new card. Notice we've added spacing in the card number now. That's right. Okay, doesn't matter whether you press save or not, the same process will happen. Now, at this point, it's validated the card number content based on the check digit. It's based, and when you press the OK, it will also validate the expiry date. Notice it's already determined the card type as well. Now, when you press that OK, it will take that card, send it to the gateway, retrieve the token, and if there is a problem with the tokenization process, like the card is stolen or invalid, the operator will get a message right away. Okay. Otherwise, the token will be stored with the transaction. So the card number and CVC code are never stored in the database. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Is there any reason why not to just attempt the transaction at that point, rather than just create the token? Yeah,
because you'll then you're not at the credit clearance, the batch closure process. So let's say you finish this, if we cleared the transaction, and then you get to the bank balance and you $400 out because this was supposed to be $440, but you processed it as $40. Creates all sorts of headaches with that process.
So this is not a live system then, direct to the bank back on the
There's two separate stages. So what happens is we press OK here, goes to the gateway, gets the token, stores that in that transaction. You still run the end of day credit clearance, and it passes the $44 with the token to the bank.
We can't tell the customer on the phone, sorry, that hasn't gone through.
Okay, so there's a few things there. First of all, guys at Access here, they actually did a pre-authorization structure specifically for Westpac, so they can actually do that. But if you're doing that, what I would suggest is look at using our web portals we went through earlier, which looks like an internal donation entry website or whatever. And you can get your cards processed, cleared immediately, just like you do on the website. So Prince Charles does that.
Internal web portal rather than using this.
Correct. So what this process with the batching is designed for is those big bulk processes, getting all of the direct mail and stuff like that. Yeah. But if you're either, it does work with the inbound and outbound telemarketing, and as you know, there's specific functions for outbound telemarketing and so forth. But if you want immediate clearance, then you can go to one of these portal pages and use that.
Wow. Then you can just pull it out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because each one of you will have a different requirement. Okay. Now, retries. Some of you are using retry facilities and some of you aren't. Either way, it's changing in a big way. So retries are a facility whereby somebody gave you the credit card, you process the transaction and it bounces. So some of you will say, okay, it's a declined transaction and you'll handle it offline. You might phone them or you might just leave it or whatever that. But we also have a facility called retries where you can say to the system, retry that card 7 times, 24 hours apart. So it will continue to retry that card 7 times, and then if it gets to the end of that retry process, then you'll get a hard decline and it will cancel the transaction.
How do we set up, how do we tell it which cards to be? The reason I bring that up is because ANZ, who are just wonderful. We're not aware of any other bank doing this, but Visa has provided a guideline. It's not a set rule, but a guideline that they will not, they would prefer that retries are not done, or any retry done after 16 days of the initial attempt will fail automatically. They will just ban it. Okay. It's a guideline only, but ANZ have implemented it.
Right.
So we have to do Visa cards as a priority for retries because we have 16 days, and in that 16 days you can only do it 4 times.
Okay. Okay, well that's what some of this new stuff is designed to give you options for. So the current system, it's a single, well there's 2 settings, but they're universal. They cover the number of retries and the number of hours between retries. All transactions are handled through that one set of retry rules. What we have added now is a retry profile maintenance process. So you can now have multiple retries. Let's open one up. And there's 2 stages of retries. So as I said before, there are 2 types of bounces or declines. There's soft declines, such as insufficient funds, and there's hard declines, such as card lost or stolen, expired card, that sort of stuff. So here's what happens. When a transaction is first declined by the credit clearance process, a routine is called that determines what sort of transaction it is and picks a retry profile to allocate to that card. So you can, again, this is a database procedure, so you can modify it for specific requirements. So you can say, if the bank is ANZ and the card type is Visa, then give it this retry profile, otherwise give it a different retry profile. You can give it a different retry profile for, say, we've got clients who are saying if it's a pledge participant acquired through Wave Act, such as a face-to-face marketing, then it gets a very short retry process and then we cancel the transaction because they know they get high rates of decline on those processes. But if it's a Art Union standing order client and it's, you know, they've been a client for many years, you might have a very long retry process. Okay, so the thing here is you can define multiple retry profiles, and then the system will allocate according to your rules which of the retry profiles is going to be followed. So let's look at what the retry profiles allow you to do. First of all, the same old numbers. How many retry attempts do we do, and how many hours between retries? So normally that would be, say, 3 retries, 22 hours apart. We don't say 24 because there's a little variation in your timing for when you clear the cards and stuff. But that's essentially a daily process. So that's the normal soft retries process. Now, we then have a second process called hard declines. Now, if we either get a hard decline, such as lost a stolen card, at any point, either the first transaction or any of the subsequent retries, we instantly jump down to this next level. Or if we exhaust the retry attempts, we end up down at this level. Now, at the moment, all you've got is this facility. But what the new facility allows you to do is then enter into a series of automatic communications with the supporter. And these can be emails, SMSs, a mail piece, or we can create a telephone call entry in the order header table so you can create your telemarketing process. So as you can see here, we've got after the retry attempts, we send them an email of this particular letter code, and then we wait a day. Then we send them a text with this particular letter code, and we wait a day. Then we send them a letter with this letter code, and we wait 2 days, and then the next two options are empty. So once that happens, we'll set the status to basically a cancelled type of status.
What's your SMS broadcasting?
Yeah, well, that's coming up in the general side of things. Now, not all of you will have SMS support because it has to be connected to specific gateways and stuff like that. But we'll come back to that. So there's also this option down here. We've been told by our friends at Marta that even if a card is marked as, say, lost, which is normally a hard decline, okay, that a week later they might find it in their handbag and it's okay again. So it'll go through. So
we have that exact scenario, insinuating it was a thing.
Well, or their wallets, the bottom of the glove box. My brother's son once went through his wallet, pulled out all the cards, and shoved them down the back window of the car, in between the into the door where the window goes down. And, so that took him a little while to work out. Anyway, so you can actually continue retries during this process. So even though it says 3 retry attempts, it'll actually continue the retry process while the rest of the sequences occur. That's what that tick box does.
That's a cost though every time you send it to bank, isn't it?
Now, this is where it's all up to you. Each of you will have different arrangements with your payment gateway and your bank. So you've got to decide what options you want. Now, one of our clients has been able to negotiate with their bank and their payment gateway 0 charges for declines. So they, in essence, have infinite retries at no cost. Okay.
And have you
But I don't know which bank. I know which. I know it's through PayStream, but I don't know which bank. I'll have to come back to you. So each of you will be able to arrange for different fees and stuff. As you know, with these payment gateway vendors, it's quite competitive. You play them off each other. You might pay more here, but get better numbers there, that sort of stuff. It's up to you guys to negotiate all of that sort of stuff. But the point is, you will have the control to do a whole variety of different things here.
Have you had much around where different banks are starting to charge people a fee for their credit card for overdrawing or?
I do know there's a big ACCC court case where they were having refunds for some of those fees.
So I wonder how much that's going to come into play.
I don't know. I can't answer that question. Okay, so let's go into letter maintenance if we can, please. So there is a new letter type called credit clearance retry communications. They'll have all the merge fields that you need to say that your donation of this order code on this date for this amount, etc. So you'll be able to create your email, your SMS, your post layouts and stuff there.
Will
Okay.
it show on their history?
Yes, it will. These will create order headers, so that they'll actually be a specific notice type in your history. You just got to turn that order type on in the history tab stuff.
Can you apply default to each record?
Yeah. So
If
what?
can be bothered?
Yeah. So normally, if you turn this facility on, you would just have as I said, we have to define the retry allocation codes routine. We need to do that for each client. So we'd need to sit down with you and allocate that. And you would have a catch-all. You'd have a whole series of rules. If it's this, do that. If it's this, do that. And then you'd have an else go to the catch-all one. Okay. Now, the second big change in this area is what happens when they get a notice. And let's say they get an email. It'll say, card's been declined, it's expired, whatever it was. Click here to update your details. So we're going to end up at a screen like this. Now it'll be customized for each of you. The client will come through to here. They'll see again the details of their transaction, and they'll be able to put in, ignore the name on card, the card number, expiry date, CVC code, save card details for next time to retain the token, submit. What that will do is it will attempt the clearance immediately using the card supplied. If it's unsuccessful, it will bounce them straight back to here. But if it's successful, it will update the token on the original transaction. Okay, you'll still have the clearance log, the previous token, and we retain that previous token. But we replace the token so you can see that they have updated details. So this will mean that they can update their own details. Now, if it's a letter they received, you can give them a URL, and you might say, put in this order code and your last name, or something like that. There's nothing really they can do to, if they got into somebody's page or whatever, other than put in their own credit card. But the idea is self-service wherever possible. If you use let's say you use an external telemarketing agency to then make phone calls to follow up these people, they will also have something like the order code, last name option, or it could be, there's a couple of different options. And it's a bit trickier, but we can implement also, once this transaction has completed, we can say, you have a pledge and a standing order that's also using this card. Do you want to update those details? And they say yes, and we've updated it across the platform.
We're good at that.
I thought that would raise a few questions.
Will it automatically charge whatever was outstanding because of what they're upping?
It'll charge for this one transaction. Yes, it'll charge immediately. Yeah.
What about exclusions? So I'm sure we don't have the best retry set up at the moment because we have to get IT to do it for us. But we have to, like, at the moment, if someone cancels their reoccurring with us, they're still on a retry list. So we've created a report for the agents that they can access to remove it, but it's all manual. And same with, like, if someone called up and said the person is deceased, that's a manual process to go in and remove them.
This is all integrated inside. In fact, you should be using the original retry process because that would have been doing it as well. Every time a retry is done in Mailman, it reevaluates those details, the order status and the contact status. When it in the credit card clearance process, it regenerates a file. It doesn't use an old file or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, I think the reason we're doing this is because of the way.
Yeah, when we first went live, you guys had 5 payment gateways, so.
Not for lotteries, we have it.
So, across the board,
Across, but this is just lotteries database, it's just e-way. But I think, is that why we do it?
No, like 3 years ago we had different ones for Amex.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Bank.
sorry.
Yeah, you had all different
Yeah,
ones. Yeah. So there was all sorts of fancy stuff that's done in the background.
But it won't, yeah, okay, so the right way to do it does all that for you.
Yeah. Okay. So we think this can be a big change and help a lot with the customer service process, efficiency, and getting the funds through the door.
Is that applicable pre-tokenisation?
We haven't planned on doing that. We've developed this with tokenization in mind. So, yeah, I haven't even thought about that, so we'll have to talk later. Okay, 10 minutes. Good. Pretty close now. Okay, another option that PayStream allows us to implement. Now, I don't think eWay allows this capability. I think Easy Debit does. Is the ability to do an automatic reconciliation between the payment gateway and the Mailman platform. So we have a new facility, select the bank account, put a start and end date. It can only be no more than 7 days apart, but let's go back a few days. Let's maybe the 12th. Yeah, run that okay. And what it's doing here is it's connecting. If it's the right database set up, it may or may not run. Okay, just it'll connect to PayStream, download all the transactions that are in PayStream this date range. It'll then go through Mailman and collect all of the transactions in Mailman for that date range, and it reconciles them all. And you get 4 types of results. The majority of them are going to be matched and okay. There may be some in PayStream, but not in Mailman. There may be some in Mailman, but not in PayStream. Or there might be, they're in both, but maybe the status is different. Now, these exceptions are rare circumstances, but we do know some of you have had issues with things like payment gateway timeouts and stuff like that, which can cause this discrepancy. This is where the payment gateway might say require up to 90 seconds to clear a transaction, but our web infrastructure, the whole Microsoft Foundation infrastructure can only wait for a maximum of 60 seconds, and that times out. So there's this gap of 30 seconds that cause the gateway to say I've cleared the transaction, but Mailman to not know that, or there could be a server crash or something like that. So at the moment, this can only be done by going into, say, eWay backend, extracting a file, and then you write the process to try to programmatically extract the data from Mailman and try to do a reconciliation. Most of you don't worry about doing that unless you have some sort of serious issues going on. But this will allow you to do this automatically. So we're trying to tie the systems closely together and make more of these processes automated for you.
Are we likely to get that done through eWay?
No, eWay doesn't support the API calls that we need to do this, unfortunately. You can go into the eWay command center or whatever it is, and as I said, you can manually export the results. What we need to be able to do in order to do this is to have an API call where we can programmatically call the gateway and say, do this for us, and send the results back to us in a format that we can programmatically work through. So to my knowledge, eWay doesn't have that capability. So unfortunately. But this is one of the reasons why Margo chose to go with PayStream. Was these sorts of PayStream, in our opinion, are more advanced. They've got there are newer vendors, so they've got newer stuff, and they're continuing to develop more. The downside to that is they're not as stable in terms of their APIs. The infrastructure is fine, They're more stable, say, by the looks of it, than say Secure Pay or something like that. But they're programming APIs that are a bit of a challenge because the interfaces that we deal with are often different in the documentation and stuff like that. But that's what we have to deal with. So there's pros and cons to each payment gateway vendor. We often say eWay is generally has been our favourite because they've been really consistent, good support, and all the rest of it. PayPal has been a fairly consistent interface, but their support totally sucks.
I wouldn't say
That'd be ideal with you.
No,
I would not say
Okay.
we're
certainly
still
better
not
than most. Yeah, certainly better than most.
That reconciliation, if you knew you like to do that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Because
well,
balancing is.
Yeah. But that's what we've been able to add with the PayStream option. So the PayStream's platform has allowed us to do things like this, like the direct debit API calls and stuff like that, and the batch processing of the large-scale credit card transaction. It's allowed us to do these extra things that the other vendors, at best, they might do one or these other things, but most don't have those sorts of
Is it likely though that the clients who are using eWay put the pressure on them to?
Absolutely. If you can do that and get the API calls
Because
and
that would
stuff like
certainly
that.
make our job a bit easier.
Yeah.
Have you had much talk with Westpac in that space?
We do. I think these guys, you with Westpac?
Yeah, we use the Westpac Payway.
Yeah, Payway. Yep. So, and again, this is as a developer, what we'd ideally like to do is have one payment gateway that we get really close with and we develop a tight technical relationship with, and their support is good, and we have all of you guys on that one payment gateway. It just doesn't happen. It's just like...
Sorry, you told us to go eWay, so
Yeah.
it's your fault.
No, eWay is good. eWay is good. As I said, until PayStream, eWay has been our vendor of choice.
eWay's just been bought by EasyDebit.
Yeah.
So there might be some more development for that.
Yeah. What we hope doesn't happen is what happened with, there was another gateway that was an Australian gateway that PayPal bought about 7 or 8 years ago. And then PayPal just shut down the API without notifying us. So we had our whole team have to stop everything and for 2 days just frantically write this new API in order to get our customers up and running again. So these sorts of things happen. And as I said, PayPal's been pretty good. We have some concern with PayStream in terms of if we know, as I said, the API and the documentation are not always in sync, and we don't have yet enough experience with them to know if that is an ongoing issue. Do they change the API and not tell us? That sort of stuff. It's always with any technical choice you're faced with. You're always going to have the old and reliable, and you got the new and fancy, but sometimes challenging options. So there's no simple answer. And we got some of our clients say, "Oh, we went with PayStream because they were miles cheaper than say EasyDebit," and then somebody else says, "No, EasyDebit's way cheaper than PayStream." So it all comes down to the person you're talking to, the dealer, they broker, and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah. Okay, view events. Let's go back now. Earlier session, we showed a bit of view events. This is actually showing email events and so forth, but the payment gateways, most of them, like eWay, for example, where it's also displaying eWay events. So if you're in a retry process or something like that, that information actually comes through. So you can actually see that, yes, it was charged on Monday and it was declined, charged on Tuesday, it was declined, charged on Wednesday, it went through, that sort of stuff.
Can you add the decline reason? You know how like in that screen there was a thing where it's declined onto the screen behind it. Is there any way we can actually add the decline reason on the
Yep.
info?
This is raising her hand. There we go.
Like those, and you can show them.
In the
And
event
then
of
that's it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you do a history run as
Okay. Okay. One last item on our list is fraud detection. Now, this year, some of you have experienced generally overseas scammers. They have stolen credit card details from other platforms. And the nice thing about any sort of nefarious activities these days is that there's a whole internet infrastructure set up there to help them make lots of money out of it. So we keep on up to speed with all the latest scams and processes and stuff like that. And a pretty common one is that they have to try, if they have a list of stolen cards, what they want to do is try that credit card to see if it's still valid. And if they don't try it, on the black market, it's worth about $3.50. And if they do try it and it's come through confirmed in the last 24 hours, they actually make about $15. There's that refined. There's an established pricing structure for it. Now, the easiest forms for them to have bots or for people to test cards to see if they're valid or not is a donation form, because you guys spend lots of effort making them really easy to use. And it's a lot easier than having to go to another site and have to add items to a shopping cart or something like that. And you've got to have the right amounts and all that sort of stuff. And the buggers have a habit of changing. So they have ways of getting around capture forms and stuff like that. Sometimes they just pay people. You know, they can go to Africa and pay somebody $1 a day to just process credit cards with that. It's a really challenging environment. The last few months, we've developed a whole new approach to a new piece of infrastructure, a fraud detection process, where we can add this to your websites, and when a transaction is entered on the website, we will call the fraud detection process, and we have a scoring mechanism that happens. And the scoring mechanism can be tailored for each of you because the fraudsters operate in different ways. So we need to be able to adapt. But basically, we get one of 3 scores. We either get no, it's all right. This transaction looks all good. In which case, the transaction will go through cleanly. No, the customer never sees anything. Or if we are suspicious, but don't have, but we're not sure, they will be challenged with an additional page, such as a capture code. Now that means that legitimate supporters, it's fairly simple for them to go through that. But if they've, for example, written a bot, not only is there a challenge with the capture itself, but if they have written the bot by manually testing this, they may not have got the capture. So they don't know when they're going to get the capture, when they're not. So that makes it a little bit harder. And then finally, we have this is pretty likely to be a fraudulent transaction, in which case we deliver a message such as, we're sorry we can't process your transaction at this time, but we love your support. Please contact our support people at this time. So it's taken us a few months to go through all of the processes, to refine the techniques and so forth, but it now seems to be working pretty well. We've had MSQ running fairly well. We had some other ones that started from Afghanistan the other day. We got a couple we blocked. Before it was Brazil.
Everyone's friends.
Yeah. But the thing is, they can get around that by using VPNs and using IP addresses from Australia. There's all sorts of stuff that these guys will try. So it's no fraud detection is going to be perfect, but that is an option to you if you need to implement. We are including the fraud detection process free of charge at no additional charge to our clients. All you've got to pay for is our time to implement the program changes at the websites that you want us to support. So I think we have still haven't done anything. You guys
No, Tony's still, we wait for you to get back to him, or?
No,
Oh,
I
we know,
spoke
we've
to him.
actually, we've actually been watching it. I've had no more issues except for one late last week.
Yep.
One transaction declined.
Yep.
Nothing recorded on the database. Like the details weren't recorded on the database, which really surprised me.
Okay, well, check with Chris or somebody about that.
Okay.
But what we're seeing, and what we've talked to a number of other organisations and security people overseas in researching this, and what we see is a lot of changing habits. That's one of the things that makes this very complex. Some of them have had long-term cat and mouse challenges with these people as they adapt and put in new ways of detecting them, and then the fraudsters work a way around that, and they have to change again, and so forth. So we've done a lot of work in that area, and we do see cases where somebody might not have anything for a long period of time, and then they come in the morning and there's 1,000 transactions have gone that through that night because they're using automated bots to do this. So you just can't know, we can't know, but that option is available to implement as needed. Okay, any questions, guys? As you see, there's a lot of changes here. The idea, as I said, in the new version is to provide you with a fairly simple upgrade path when 2017 is released, but then to take advantage of some of these new features will require more work. So you'll be able to roll out 2017 without using your existing gateways, with the existing credit card clearance processes, all that sort of stuff. And then when you're ready to tokenize or change vendors or update the websites or whatever, then we work with you on that.
We do each process as we go along.
That's right. Yeah. So you're not gonna. It's not just in April 2017 you suddenly a bucket load of stuff you've got to do right now. That's not the case.
Michael, I know you're saying you've developing lots of procedures and documents to support.
Yeah.
Is there some kind of like a summary of here are the kind of key things you can take advantage of? Is roughly how much it's going to cost you to connect this to that? If you can start to plan out budgeting, because if people can't afford it within this financial year, they'll need to know what they want to click on and off and get some idea. I know that there's no one the string, but some cost considerations that they can put in their budget plan and saying, no, I can afford this year and all the rest I'm going to chuck in the next year. So some sort of guideline would be really helpful for people to understand how they can afford and plan around it.
That's probably a good idea. Obviously there are challenges. Like, for example, to upgrade you guys is going to be easier than Endeavour, for example, because of different code bases and stuff like that.
But if there's some sort of, approximate cost, timing, however you want to work it, but something to help people actually work out their budget plan.
We probably won't have good indications probably until Christmas time. But early in the new year, we should be in a position to do that. Yeah. So where we're at the moment is most of these fundamental technologies are all worked out. If everyone looks at the whiteboard, there's like 15 different items, whole new features in the system that are all tied to credit clearance processing, and all of them had to be developed simultaneously. And we've been ticking them off over the last few months as we develop them. We then need to refine that process, and that's what we're doing over the next month. And we'll work with some of you if you want to come and play with us and work out some of the processes. Because keep in mind too, you're going to have to adapt some of your business processes and your legal policies
and that's why this
stuff
is
like that.
vital for people to understand how much work and all of the other departments and the knock-on impact that has other than a tech piece. There's processes that need to go to each one of those.
Indeed. So we'll continue on that work, and then early next year we should have that pretty well marked out, and then we have to repeat the program changes in all of the other. There's about 12 other entry screens we need to adapt to support the tokenization. That should run fairly smoothly, and then we should have a couple of 2 to 3 months clear Q&A before we're ready to release. So that's the current plan.
You're going to cover stuff like the SMS broadcast in the next session.
In the next one, yeah, that's the general. Let me just make sure I have this.
So Mike, if we move to that tokenisation, that would then make us all PCI compliant, like the issues we've had with our bank?
Yeah, well, there's 2 parts to it. One is the tokenization. That's probably the biggest thing. And the other thing is the security of your front end to the server. So most of you have that covered, but some of our clients like yourself, you're on a particular server that has one older legacy system, which we have to maintain an old certificate for. But in the next month or so, we should be migrating you away from that. So that should solve that problem. But the combination of the security we have in place for normal interface design and so forth. By the way, all of our web developers and stuff go through security training and so forth. And we're constantly trying to pick different holes. How could somebody subvert this process and steal some information or intercept communication and stuff like that. Once we get the tokenization in addition to what we already have with this website, you should be pretty good.
Only on this though, yeah, because PCI compliance is the whole range of
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The key thing with our hosted clients is we look after an awful lot of that, but it does cover everything. Although we take credit card payments for our software and stuff, and we still get people who email us their credit card numbers, for example, and stuff like that. I'm sure you all experience that. EPC, as you right, covers a lot of other things, but those are big steps.
You were saying something about a web page. Would that be an offline web page? Yes, you go and take this. What I do now, if people ring up with their credit card, I'll just go straight to the web and I'll put it through.
Yeah.
And I'll find it, just straight to the donation page and stick it through.
Yeah.
But is there an offline web page that we can actually access?
You mean not connected to the internet?
Well, it has to be connected.
Yeah, it has to be connected.
Regardless, so the only way to do it is to use your web page.
You have to be online.
You could build an internal one, which is probably what we're going to do, so we can get instant clearance to tell the customer when we've got one paying.
We get instant clearance.
Oh, through the donation page.
Yeah, through the donation
page. But I think what they're talking about is, for example, what we've done for PCHF with their telemarketing team. They can take a card payment and it's instantly cleared while the customer.
And it's not using the website, it's using
And you can do it
web page.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Yeah. Whereas if you use the normal order entry screens in Mailman, it's not cleared until the end of day. Yeah. Okay, excellent. Thank you all. I think we're up to lunch. Is everyone staying for the last session? No? Okay.
Lara, I tagged you in.
Excellent. We'll please with a couple little